I'm trying to think this through. When we run electricity through a vat of distilled water to drive silver ions or particles off of the electrodes and into the vat of water, and if I run it for several hours, days, weeks on end, various batches that I'll do in the same beaker, if I'll use a glass container, and if I was to use plastic, I know what'll happen. The silver will embed itself in the plastic and discolor it. Well, when you use glass, it's less likely for that to happen, but if you run it long enough, over a long enough period of time, long enough per session, making it murky or whatever, you can get silver played out on the inside of the glass container. So what does that mean? What does it mean? Well, first of all, glass or plastic is a dielectric. Okay? It's beginning to make me think like there's a principle in money and economics that's called acceleration. And it has to do with how quickly does money change hands. And the more quickly it changes hand, the more the value of the dollar goes up. And it doesn't matter whether it's fiat currency-based money or gold and silver. It makes no difference because the principle is the same, but the end result, problematically, the details of which are a little different in each case. With fiat currency, it pretty much gets distributed across the board, the acceleration principle or the lack thereof. But with commodity currency, it becomes resident with the currency itself. So if rich people hold on to their money because they don't need to spend it, right? They've got gazillions more than what they can possibly spend on themselves, if they're conservative about their spending habits, let's say. So the gold just sits there in their vault and doesn't get spent, and what happens is there's a shortage of gold coins in the realm. And that drives the value of the gold up, but doesn't help because there's only a limit, only so much. So it can't drive it up if it's a fixed rate. What it does is it makes it problematical for people to perform exchanges because there's no money. It's like, woo, where'd it go? The wealthy are holding on to it, and that's what's called investment pools, which is what you do with fiat currency. Anyway, well, I better wait a minute. I'm getting off topic. Let me get back to topic here. So when you run a current inside a vat, it would seem to me that the more speedy is the rate of the flow of silver, particles, ions, doesn't matter, whichever, off of the electrodes and into the water, the faster will be the plating effect on the sides of the container. Which doesn't help us because we're trying to take silver out of the container of water, which effectively is happening, but it's at the skin of the container. This is the point of this video. The skin represents the interface. Either the skin represents the dielectric or the skin represents the interface between the body and the dielectric, in which case the dielectric is the clothing, the environment, the air surrounding the body. Air is a dielectric. So is water, except the water is the part of the body, more so than is the airspace surrounding it. So if argyria ends up in the skin, it tells us it's going there for a reason. It's not because the body deposits fat there, and the body deposits fat there for a reason, not because you see where I'm going with it. We just take certain things for granted. Well, that's the way it is. That's the way it works. Well, why? The little 4-year-old. Why? Well, this is very good. Why? I'm sorry. This cracks me up. Okay. So there's a reason. It's probably because the silver, in the course of migrating between one electrode and the other, is carrying a charge. But when it reaches the surface of the container, being the dielectric, which stores charge, eventually silver accumulates there, because the silver then accumulates there loses charge. That's the whole point of the hydrogen peroxide, is to impart a negative net charge to the silver to keep it in solution. Except that because it's made in solution, I suspect what's going on is that the charge goes to the solution, not to the silver, but I don't know. That's a technicality. I'm not going to worry too much about it, where the charge is held. Let's just say it's in solution. And if it sits long enough, it loses its charge, and it will plate out on the bottom of the container. Take a long time. Silver hydroperoxide, especially if MSM is added, is a very stable solution, much more stable than colloidal silver, and it'll stay a very long time. And you don't even have to keep it in the dark. I don't know about temperature, but it does not have to be in the dark. That's the other thing. It's very stable. More stable than is any silver salt that I know of, which is why I stay away from silver salts. Because they're a waste of time. They promise you the world because they're ionic, and they don't deliver. Because they only stay in solution so long, and then, oopsie, back into metallic form, silver metallic form. So why does it end up at the skin? Because for some reason the skin is behaving like a dielectric, or it's butting up against the dielectric, the air and the clothing surrounding the body. Soap. Soap for some reason is kind of like vitamin C. It slightly encourages argyria. Not as bad as sunlight. Sunlight's a really big encouragement, big time. It's the biggest one. Everything else trails behind, little baby ducks trailing behind. So we have to say that the potassium hydroxide of liquid cast-style soap, for instance, is soaking up the negative charge that would otherwise be carried by the body fluids to keep the silver in solution. I suspect that you have to have a very... I've always been thinking this, that the irony is that a healthy physiology does not need silver because it never gets sick, but can handle it and won't give itself argyria because it's got all of its physiological processes up to par so that the silver never plates out in the skin. That's the irony. So we have to figure out why it doesn't work for the rest of us who think we need silver. Yet we can't handle it because we give ourselves argyria if we're not careful, if we don't know what we're doing. Or both. Lazy, anyway. Act in a non-disciplinary fashion. And it's not because we're being punished or punishing ourselves. We just want to be very precise about how we perform certain actions. We can be lazy about other things, like, I'll eat sweets, but I won't mix it with beans. My tummy won't like that. But no, I don't stay away from sugar. I just don't like humongous amounts of it, but I do like it. And sweets. It doesn't matter whether it's sugar or date sugar. Sugar, as far as the flavor's different, okay. I like honey. So, it's plating out at the skin for a reason. The same reason why it would plate out on the inner surface of a container, be it glass or plastic, is because that the edges of the container is acting like a dielectric. You handle the container, that drains off the charge, coming from the outside when you touch it. We don't feel it, obviously, but it's there. There's stuff that goes on that we don't know about. For instance, which is it? I forget which it is. I think it's either plastic or glass is actually more porous than the other. I forget which it is. But it's so microscopic, it's not something we would think about. But it's something, because over time, I notice I have to clean out my 2-quart glass pitcher by putting fresh distilled water in it, take out all the electrodes, put in 3 ounces of 35% strength food-grade hydrogen peroxide, and keep it stirring for a day or two. And it only cleans it out slightly. Whoops. So maybe I should put one electrode on the outside surface, like aluminum foil surrounding the outside, and another electrode on the inside, and treat the glass as if it's a capacitor, and then I'll create a charge. So it's just a question of which is the appropriate charge. I keep forgetting. Is it the negative that would deplate, negative on the inside that would deplate the inner surface of the glass pitcher of its silver content? I'm going to have to try that. Okay, so The problem is, the skin is... the skin is a dielectric. Oh my God. Shit. Sorry. I forgot. We go back to the book Earthing by Marty Zucker. Well, he's the third author, actually. Clint Ober is the first author. Marty Zucker was just the writer who helped write the book, because Clint Ober is the inventor and he's not a writer. Marty Zucker is a friend of mine. Hi, Marty! Anywho, let's see. So, they say in that Earthing book that the skin is a resistor, and it does vary its resistance. And Becker had to deal with that resistance, actually, now that I think about it. If you look it up on the internet, the skin's resistance has already been measured, and it varies. It can vary a lot, but it has a lot more resistance than the interior tissue, underneath the skin, the various tissue systems, cellular systems inside the body. For some reason, the skin is set up as a dielectric, as a resistor, as an insulator. Just like in the myelin sheath covering neurons are resistors. That's a whole other thing that Dr. Becker talks about in his book. It's very fascinating. How do the cells communicate with each other to perform regeneration? Oh my God. Pure Nikola Tesla right there. And he mentions Tesla. He was aware of Tesla, so it's not surprising that he uses concepts that Tesla is already familiar with. So, the skin is a dielectric, now that I think about it. So we don't have to invoke the air or the clothing, the skin itself. So it's acting like a container, like a glass or plastic container. And it soaks up a charge, will dissipate it, because the other side is the clothing, and we touch things, and so we ground out the charge that's on our skin. And so of course, we would give ourselves argyria if we ground out the charge that we gave ourselves. And I suspect that's why I'm habituated to taking baths in silver hydroperoxide, because I'm doing two things. I'm suffusing my body with more silver every time I do it, but I'm also charging myself with a negative electric charge due to the fact that the hydrogen peroxide is invoking that, or embodying that, and providing that to the silver to make it more soluble, or to make it very soluble. But then the body dissipates it, because, my metabolism ain't the greatest, so I lose that negative charge, and then the silver, I think, starts to plate itself out very faintly in the skin. I haven't admitted it. I haven't been willing to admit it to any of you guys and gals yet, but hey, since faithahora has been bringing up the subject, I might as well go there. So silver hydroperoxide's caveat is, you got to keep doing it. Yeah, I didn't say why I'm habituated to it. It's not because of the silver. It's because I might get argyria if I don't keep it up. Well, that's weird. Well, it also has MSM in there. Oh, yeah, right. No, it's the hydrogen peroxide that keeps the silver in solution that's already in the body from the prior bath. Stay in solution. Stay, boys. Stay. Heal. Oof, oof. So, and I do silver hydroperoxide baths, not hydrogen peroxide baths, because silver hydroperoxide is far less burning, more stable, and the silver's there to heal. So why wouldn't I want the best of everything? But it creates a habit. A habit I don't want to break. I wouldn't call it a drug habit. A substance habit? Okay, but then so is food. Try going without food. You see how much a substance habit-oriented habit that is. So let's not stretch the analogy too much, okay? Or else we'll be taking down everything. Forget nudity. Just how about fasting? Try that one. Oh boy. Let's see. Switch hands. Okay. So the skin is a dielectric, and that's why the argyria ends up there, because it's soaking up the charge, or it's dissipating. It's dissipating the charge that the body generates just by living, and because we, in theory, should be able to metabolize any silver, well, within limits. A modest amount of silver, if absorbed into the body, we should be able to metabolize it. In other words, keep it soluble. This is one thing I learned about fasting. When something is soluble, it's been digested. And if it's not soluble, it has not been digested yet. Real simple. Nothing complicated there. Well, that's the problem with metallic silver. It has not been digested yet. And when we oxidize it, by one means or another, by means of the body or by means of chemicals, it now becomes a metabolite, a nutrient, which can now be metabolized so long as it stays soluble. When it plates out under the skin as argyria, whoopsie, it is now not soluble, obviously, and it's no longer a nutrient, which is what people just assumed all along. But that's because they never bothered to consider ionic silver. Oops! And worst of all, oxidized ionic silver. This is not a silver salt. Sure, we got salt in our bloodstream, but I eat food, right? I'm not fasting. Good to bring it up again. See? I'm not fasting. I'm eating food. And if I have an active metabolism on top of that, I'm not sedentary, nor do I have a sedentary metabolism, which is two different things. What do I do, and what does my metabolism do? Two separate things. If I'm active on both respects, and one does influence the other, so there's some bleed over, then the silver has a greater chance of being oxidized and stay in solution. The greatest problem is allowing the silver to come out of solution due to the fact that it wants to. That's the biggest problem. Silver doesn't want to stay in solution. It wants to turn back into metal and end up in argyria under the skin. So, to keep it in solution, we have to keep up the metabolism of the body. And oxidation is just one of the things that our metabolism does. The other thing is electrical activity. So we got two things going on, and both have an impact on keeping the silver in solution. So, rest my elbow here. Sorry for the angle. Yeah, you would prefer to be right in front of me, right? So we'll just have to do it at an angle. It's better for my elbow. I can prop up the cell phone. So, with an active metal... Now, so let's go back to what faithahora wants to do. She wants to avoid the use of bathing because she doesn't have a bathtub. Well, my ex-honey doesn't have a bathtub either. A lot of people don't have bathtubs. So... I'm just lucky I made certain to get a bathtub when I moved here. Because I got addicted to bathing in my last place I was at. It's really cool. Because hydrogen peroxide takes care of depression really nicely. And you can put colloidal silver in the bath and soak your skin in it. Before I learned how to make silver hydroperoxide. So, but that's probably why I did all those circuit experiments. Because I hadn't been making silver hydroperoxide when I was there. So I've gotten lazy here. I stopped using circuits. And I'm beginning to think that faithahora may have a point. That my tendency now is to not take baths in silver hydroperoxide every day because I don't need to. I might take it twice a week. That seems to be a good minimum. Once a week is already stretching it a bit. My immune system starts to drop at that point. But it could be... that I simply need to boost, in a safe manner, the metabolite or the oxidized or the soluble version of silver in my body, accentuate that, encourage that, by using, the sleep circuit that I've developed, this tiny little thing here. Where is it? See, this thing here? This tiny little thing here, this plate of, well, not so tiny, it's a plate of cardboard with 66 count resistors of 100 mega ohms each, giving forth 6.6 giga ohms of resistance and a AA battery. So I get my my little commodity silver disc for one contact, and then I got for the other contact, yeah, there it is. Although faithahora says she's got all the earthing equipment, she's got the wrist ankle bands, and that's perfect. One thing I learned about Leon Ernest Eamon's biocircuitry is that the energy that we give to the body is shared to the entire body. So yeah, there's an advantage of putting your contact point at the K1 kidney meridian at the ball of the foot, right in the middle of the ball, right behind the toes, because it revitalizes the entire physiology. It's an unbelievable position to put a contact point for an electrode of a circuit that you're running through the body, zapping the body with electricity. I know Hulda Clark, wanted you to hold copper pipes, one in each hand, and send it across your chest. Not generally something I would recommend doing, but it was such a weak circuit she got away with it, though. And I experienced a tremendous amount of bliss if I held them for 10 hours in a rigid position on my back, sleeping at night, and with stiff arms the next day. And the bliss was beautiful. So I ended up having to give up on that. Made the circuit from scratch, according to her directions. But anyway, so I had to come up with something. I had to give that up. But Becker's circuit is pretty simple and straightforward. You just have to push the resistance down. Push the amperage down by driving up the resistance. And I find that my body is very susceptible, I suspect, to create argyria if I make use of the circuit. And I say that because we go back to the analogy of the vat, the colloidal silver generator analogy. The silver plates up on the interior of the vat because the container is a dielectric material. It's either plastic or glass, let's say. It's certainly not going to be metal. And even if it's glazed pottery, it's still acting like a dielectric. So it's an insulator, but it stores charge, and it accumulates charge and draws it off from your vat. Well, when I ran the circuit recently, a few weeks ago, through my body, I had my navel as one contact point, and my back, between the shoulder blades, was another contact point. So that was getting a little close to the heart. I also alternately would use my tailbone, which is not at all near my heart. From the navel to the tailbone, that's a different direction. Yet, I found it suppressed. What did it do? Oh God, it had a bad effect. Was it the digestion, or was it my left arm condition, which I don't know if it's a stroke or if it's just leftover from the neck injury I gave myself in 1987, which wasn't a stroke. What it did was it made my left arm paralyzed at times and numb, totally numb. My left leg partially, and the face around my mouth partially. But my left arm had episodes initially of it totally becoming paralyzed, and I'd have to pick it up and move it around with my right hand. And it was also numb at the same time. It would happen, when I was leaning on it. No, it would happen when I was hungry, when I had an empty stomach before a meal. That was it. For some reason, eating a meal. Yeah, see, when we fast, all the energy that would have gone to digesting food goes to healing the body. And so what it was doing was, I was reliving the injury. Shiva is a principle. Lord Shiva embodies the principle of tamas, guna, which means that when you destroy something, usually what happens is you bring it up to the surface, you make it more apparent, more obvious, yet it's on its way out. Like when you blow up a building, all the debris blows in your face and say, "Oh, building." A building I always took for granted and I never bothered to notice, now is in my face. And then a few seconds later, it's no longer there where it was standing. Instead, it's in my face. Oh, building. Ding, light bulb goes off. Oh, building. But that's because you destroyed it. And that's what Shiva does. When you take something and you end it, that's when you really notice its existence, when it's on its way out of existence. So when you obliterate it. So why was I bringing that up? Oh, shoot. Dang it. I ought to get a rope and hang it from the highest tree. Oh, okay, enough. Don't take me to the next lyric. Not yet, anyway. Okay, I'll let you look it up if you're not old enough to know the lyrics to that song. I can't give you the hint of who made up that song. Sorry, I don't remember. But he was a cool guy anyway. I can't help but think in the next lyric. Don't think of that. Don't think of Pink Elephant. I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking about it. Okay. Yeah, there was something about sending the circuit through my lower belly. Oh, now I remember. So it was before the meal, like a fast, in which I had the energy liberated from digesterone, so that now it could heal my neural injury, and that's when I would re-experience it, because it was undergoing healing. And over time, those episodic sensations would lessen, but they would come, and they would lessen. Well, when I was taking the bath in silver hydroperoxide religiously a few months ago, I started to, well, like every day, I started having those experiences in my left arm, and I thought, uh-oh, is this a stroke or is this neural healing? See, I can't tell the difference. And then I go cuckoo, because I go, oh my, should I panic, you know? So when I was doing the circuit recently through the lower belly, I think I was getting those sensations, but it was also, I think it was suppressing my appetite. That was it. Now, normally, when I send the electricity through my legs using the K1 spot, especially the K1 spot on the bottom of each foot, you know, periodically I'd swap polarity to give each leg a rest from being strained, electrolytically strained, being one polarity for too long, which is a good idea to do since it's not an AC circuit. Not that using an AC circuit solves the problem, because a switching circuit gives you voltage spikes, and voltage spikes confuses the stem cells, and stem cells, when they become confused, turn into cancer. So, AC is out. See why I don't want to go with Bob Beck? Because his zapping circuit was an AC-oriented circuit, and it was a certain frequency to increase the electroporation potential of the skin. In other words, open up the pores so that drugs could go through the skin. But his was an AC circuit, and I say he's a government plant because Robert Becker, Bob Beck, how easy is it to get the two guys mixed up, yet they are worlds apart in what they studied and what conclusions they rendered from their respective studies. So dipoles apart. That's why I say it's a government plant, because it's to confuse us. Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about, Bob Beck. No, I'm talking about Dr. Robert Otto Becker, MD. If Bob Beck had a PhD in anything, it was not in the medical practice, okay? So I'm no doctor, but Dr. Robert O. Becker was an MD. And Bob Beck was not. Bob Beck was a scientist, but he was not a doctor of medicine. So we have to be very straight about not confusing those two fellows. Very important. Okay, now we've covered that. So I think really it's best when you really consider when I really consider is to do the circuit only through the legs. Only. Because it is not a biocircuit driven merely by the body or the earth energy or both. It's driven by a battery. And no matter how much resistance we put in, my experience has been it's still not good enough suppression of amperage to make it ideal. The only ideal is throw away the battery and come up with something better. And at earthinglife.info, I did come up with something better. That strictly uses, it amplifies, it's a circuit that amplifies the voltage-oriented signals that go between the body and the earth through a single line connection. But a single line, there's no current. And, well, to speak of, except for equalization of voltage potentials between the earth and the body. And that's why I say signal-oriented, because it varies. And then all you get is intelligence being transferred between the earth and the body, and not energy. The earthing book people say energy, but I have to disagree that it's not energy, it's intelligence. And Marty Zucker hates it when I use that word. But mainly, I guess, because you can't sell intelligence to people, you know. They think, but I'm smart. That's not the intelligence we're talking about here. We're talking about information. You know, just like digital is information, bits and bytes. It can come in any form. You can draw circles and lines on a piece of paper to represent bits and bytes. It doesn't have to be in the form of stored on a disk on somebody's hard drive, which is magnetic. You know, it can be totally, hey, you know, broken sticks and solid sticks of the I Ching, of the Asian tradition, you know. So intelligence can take any form of manifestation. It's devoid of that. It's simply structure in its most simplest structuring of bits and bytes, of yang and yin. Guys and gals, right, okay, enough. So, that circuit was very interesting, but I've never tried that circuit with argyria, so we want to, you know, stick with what we can, I'll leave it for later. I have the circuit in storage. I don't use it anymore. I just ground myself without the use of the circuit, because there are caveats to using that circuit. You have to be careful. The nature of power is you just have to be careful how you use power. The power of the lever you can play fun and games with the person on the other side of the lever, but if you're 10 times heavier than the person at the other end, the other person at the other end has something to worry about. Every time you come down, that person might go flying. But I'm just playing with you. Yeah, go play with somebody your own size. See? So power has its caveat. So you just have to be careful, but it can make the difference between changing a situation, and that's what we're thinking about, getting rid of argyria, using something other than a bath in hydrogen peroxide. So, what I'm wondering is, will charging the legs alone get rid of argyria someplace else on the body? My experience in the past with zapping, and I was using high-powered zappers, nothing like what I cooked up on my own, this little circuit I just showed you. I was using a circuit called the Contour, which is an abdominal exercise device, not intended for health purposes. You must be healthy before you use this device. Okay. But it's approved by the FDA and otherwise. Okay, great. And I would put the contacts on the ball of my foot, one on each ball. And I would use a specific program that had low frequency DC voltage-oriented pulses, although the amperage is very high. I think it's milliamps. It might be microamps, I'm not sure. Yeah, it was either 10 cycles per second or less, because above 10 cycles per second, our muscles will contract, but below 10 cycles per second, they merely twitch. So you don't run the risk of cramping, and it's much more sedating than is the contracting version, which is, you're getting like a buzz. Exciting, but I don't think I want to do that for hours on end. But when I did the low pulses for hours, like 8 or 10 hours, with the K1 spot on each foot, oh my God, my battery's going dead. I did a really cool number, if I don't electrocute myself. Boy, one-handed is difficult. Okay, wait, I gotta get my... Oh, shoot. Alright, sorry. One of these days I'll have to invent a cell phone whose battery lasts forever, like an Energizer battery. Okay, here we go. So, it energized my system, and I was really sick in those days, very drained, stressed. I was so energized after 10 hours on that device that I had to eat fish, literally, to ground myself. And I'm not usually an eater of fish. I am usually just a vegetarian. So it was amazing what it was. I had to open up a can of sardines and literally ground myself and go, yummy, yummy, you know. But it was amazing what that did to energize the system, and I suspect that's what's missing when argyria becomes prevalent is energy. Whether we say it's electricity or oxidation, it almost doesn't matter anymore. It's simply the metabolic rate of the physiology. Is it so sluggish that you should become sick? And then what? You want to take silver on top of it? Why? Just you can give yourself argyria? And I'm not joking, because it's of that irony that I stated previously. Now, how am I doing on time here? I'm doing okay. Okay. So, I suspect it might be possible to merely charge the legs, even though the argyria is elsewhere in the body, provided that enough time is spent charging the legs. Because what happens is the blood circulates and it carries the charge around the body, and the whole body gets the charge. So I think it's doable in the way that I suggested to faithahora, was to safely just do the legs. One contact, and so since she has wristbands from her earthing kit, then use the ankles as your contact point. Oh, so what I learned from the biocircuitry is that the energy splits. It'll go down to the feet and up the feet to redistribute itself, because it wants to do that. It wants to redistribute itself. So you don't have to worry about where you put it. It's just advantageous to put it at the K1 spot, your contact point for the circuit. But if you have to put it out of convenience because you want to it day and night or whatever, or while you sleep at night, whatever, you want to do it on the ankles, that's fine. Now, the other thing not to worry about is whether or not you'll short out the circuit if you cross your legs in the middle of the night, or do I have to remove, or do you, faithahora, or anybody, I'm right now laying on an earthing sheet, and it's grounded. Should I worry about that? Well, I submit a whole video. If you look them up under, I think it's the Dr. Becker channel. There's a whole video on the subject that shorting out a voltage-oriented circuit is exactly what we want to do, because we want to reduce the current even further. And we'll be stuck with the same voltage as before, just less current, because it's taking the path of least resistance, which just happens to be not our body. You know, the earthing sheet, bed sheet that we're laying on, for instance. So all the better. Now, that's not a substitute for putting in as much resistance in your circuit as you can. That's still a requirement, because you don't want to blow up the battery, right? Oh, I don't have to use a resistor. Vinny said it'll short through the earthing sheet anyway. And your battery blows up and starts a fire in the middle of your sleep and burns your feet in the, I don't think we need that, right? So build a circuit according to standard procedure of putting in a minimum of 1 mega ohm of resistance and a AA battery, and then just jack up the resistance any higher than that if you can. If you can't, fine, don't worry about it. But 1 mega ohm I think is the minimum, as I recall, because that's, chapter 7 of Becker's book, the Body Electrics. So Bob Beck did not write and publish any books. He wrote a book, Take Back Your Power, but he's not an author, a published author. See, it's very different. One is very scholastic, and one isn't. And it's the scholar that is the one I quote, not Bob Beck. Okay, don't even go. We must be very precise who we're citing here. Okay. So, so shorting out is not a problem. Let's see, what else have I covered? Yeah, I think my sensitivity is such these days that I really can't afford to take any risks whatsoever, because my left arm goes numb on me, partially numb, and I don't know what to think. Is it my nervous system is healing in the area of my neck injury? Is it a stroke condition? I don't know. I ain't a doctor, okay? And because of that neck injury, it could be either one or both. In all likelihood, it's probably just neural damage that's acting up, maybe healing. Well, yeah, that's right, the Shiva principle. It would be healing. And I don't think it would be getting any worse. But it's kind of disconcerting, let's put it that way. To have it in your focus of your awareness, like not something that's why I use cayenne pepper. It does seem to help, and I suspect cayenne pepper helps simply because it kicks the metabolism to a higher level of activity, literally by way of aggravation. Like, come on, push, move, get going, stop being so sedentary. Probably why I didn't care much for hot stuff when I was younger. Well, I still don't like the flavor of hot stuff, but I like the value of what they do for the body. So I use capsules when I want to take it and ingest it. When I put it in the bath, whew, God, I have to be careful because it really burns the scrotum big time. But it's a very important thing because it's traditional. It goes back to ancient India, Krishna, Shiva, Rama, Shukadeva. They are either blue or black or both, and spices come out of the Orient. And a chemist has managed to interpret the Ramayana as such that he firmly believes that Hanuman built a dirigible filled with helium, produced by their knowledge of how to build a dry cell battery, which is no small task. What this chemist discovered, those skilled in the art, it's a whole thing in themselves. You don't just take a basic chemistry course and think that you can build a dry cell battery, because you got to put a membrane between the two cells. How do you do that? So he found that out. The people in the ancient times knew how to do that, and had their own nomenclature in Sanskrit how to describe it. And they knew how to electrolyze water and separate the hydrogen from the oxygen. Excuse me, it was not a helium. Did I say helium? No, it was a hydrogen-filled dirigible. And that's how Rama went and fetched Sita from, I guess it was Ceylon or Sri Lanka, whatever it is, and to bring her back. So they knew about electricity, and the fact is, anybody who's wealthy enough who can afford silverware will prevent various pathogenic illnesses in its own right. But add to that electrical knowledge, and you've got yourself the basis of giving yourself argyria, because they would be making silver solutions left and right. How hard is it to figure that one out? Make 2 silver vases, 2 silver urns, and connect it with some kind of wire setup, whatever. Is that how it would work? Oh yeah, one on the outside, connected to the vases, and one on the inside. You might hang a spoon, a silver spoon, whatever, dangling down in the middle, immersed in the middle of the vat of water, so the electricity goes from the urn to the spoon, or in the reverse, and so you end up putting a lot of silver into the container. And that would be an easy way if I had to figure out how to do it. But they don't know about redox. They don't know about hydrogen peroxide. That's high-end technology, technical knowledge. So, I can't make hydrogen peroxide. I looked it up. You need it's an industrial scale system to make the stuff. You just don't make it in your chem lab at school. It doesn't work that way. So they would have given themselves argyria. And as my TM teacher, my close friend tells me, there's a tradition in India that those who are blue-colored are considered to be close to God, or in their expression, close to the absolute, to the transcendental nature, the essence of life, God. That's in everything. That which is impersonal, which is not a personality. So we shouldn't really say God, because usually in the West, when we say God, we think of somebody with hair, and eyes and ears, and who can hear your prayers. But no, this is the impersonal aspect of existence, the essence of life, just existence, being, that's everywhere. And existence is the impersonal aspect of God, which the Nietzsche and the existentialists would call the void. But that's just because they didn't want to go there, because they were afraid of unstressing. They're afraid of samadhi. Oh, is that how you contact the void of existentialists that Ralph Waldo Emerson spoke of? Oh yeah, that void. Yeah, why do you want to go there? Because on the way there, or as a consequence of visiting there, you get rid of stress. Oh, really? God, that's scary. Yeah, well, but how else are you going to purify? You want to wait and put it off till you get to hell? Hey, if you live on this planet and you die, you go to hell first before you go to heaven, because you don't want to go to heaven and be dirty. So you go to purgatory first, purge yourself and get clean, and then go to heaven, and now you're nice and clean. We don't bother to think anything through. No, you only go to heaven or you only go to hell. Whoever came up with that one? We are the privileged ones. You are going to hell. No, you're... Don't listen to those people. They don't know what they're talking about. You go to both. It's just a question of how much time do you spend in each. See? Einstein was good for something. The relativists have their day. How much time do you spend in hell versus how much time do you spend in heaven? There you go. Yeah, I'm covering a lot of ground here. Yeah, I'm all over the map. Okay. Where were we? So India is, I think, the conventional wisdom of colloidal silver is, if you look it up and read about it, is use cayenne pepper. You know, it's like goes without saying. You know, before we get to Vinny's version, the traditional approach is silver and cayenne pepper. And those are like two standards. And because the cayenne pepper helps your physiology make use of the silver, it kicks it. It gives a good punch. You know, like that guy in one of the videos I saw. They were down in Auckland. Aussieland, you know, Australia. This guy, his friend, was selling fresh cayenne peppers of various varieties. And his friend comes, hey, come over here, and I want you to tell everybody your testimonial. Oh, yeah, colloidal silver works. And cayenne pepper. And he takes one of the guy's cayenne peppers, and it's fresh, big, huge, long cayenne pepper. Yum, yum. And I'm going, ah! And I'm thinking the cartoons where the steam comes out of the ears, you know. It's like and the head goes red. Woo! And the head goes spinning around in a circle. And I think, hey, he looks normal. None of that's happening. Why? Well, let me see. He looks the sturdy type. He's probably a meat eater, which I'm not. And he's well fed. Got lots of blubber on him. I don't. So, okay. He's got a cast iron stomach, which some people, you know, seem to have for one reason or another. I made up a few guess estimates, but that's no indication of the only way to have a cast iron stomach. So I have to be careful how I use cayenne pepper. But the fact remains, it's natural, it comes from nature, and it works. And traditionally, in terms of low-tech technology, soft technology, I think is the term that I learned from Whole Earth Catalog, versus hard technology. You know, hard technology is hydrogen peroxide. Soft technology is cayenne pepper. So you don't want to give up on something that's traditional, you know, conventionally traditional, traditionally conventional, such as cayenne pepper is, regardless of how you use the silver or you're trying to get rid of it. That's why a bath in cayenne pepper could be useful too, by itself. I don't know. Maybe. I've never tried it by itself. The other thing to wonder about, I mean, I've never tried it in a controlled way so that I can, you know, discern what's going on. I have done it before with silver and whatnot, but I wasn't, you know, trying to figure out how to get rid of argyria. What do you do if you don't have a bath? You get a spray bottle from the market, and you put a little cayenne pepper in it, which I've in the past used when I want to keep spiders out of my vicinity. I spray the room, the floor down, because they can't stand cayenne pepper. They're alcoholics. Did you know spiders are alcoholics? That's why they spin their web. It's all the yeast inside their body that creates that web. And, you know, it's fungal. It's fungal strands. That's why it's sticky. It's why the lazy, we're talking about the lazy spiders who hang out and don't go anywhere, not the jumping spiders, but the lazy spiders with the big thoraxes, they're drunks. They're alcoholics. Don't ruin their life by taking away their alcoholism. They might have to get reborn as some other animal, not a spider anymore. Dang, I was having so much good time being drunk all the time. Why'd you have to push me into a different lifespan in my next incarnation by waking me up too suddenly with cayenne pepper? Ah! Where were we? Right, so it almost doesn't matter how you use silver or how you get rid of it, because the main problem is a sluggish metabolism. Whether we analyze the metabolism in terms of its oxidation, rate of oxidation, how quickly does it burn up calories, or whether or not we look at it in terms of its electrical nature, how strongly is it sending signals through the nervous system? And how well developed is the nervous system? Does it atrophy? So, the sleep circuit may work, 50 some odd gigaohms, or no, excuse me, not 50, 5 some odd gigaohms, I'm guessing, plus or minus, of resistance, equating to somewhere in the vicinity of 200 some odd picoamps, equivalent to 50 count, 100 megaohm each resistors. The only reason why I say quarter watt is because you don't need anything bigger, and because anything bigger is going to cost you an arm and a leg when you buy 50 of them. Because I looked for a tera ohm resistor. Was it a tera? The next one up. No, wait. The next one up from mega is. No, that's. No. Oh no, I was looking for a tera. Was I looking for a tera or a giga ohm resistor? I can't remember. I think it was a tera ohm resistor. I think tera is above giga. I can't remember. Very expensive and only sold on eBay for high voltage applications. So I thought, okay, forget that. I'll just have to take the trouble of stringing all these resistors, which was a lot of work to do it twice. I did it twice, if not 3 times, before I got to this current one, which I'm not bothering to improve upon or change. It's good enough for me. So that's why I say around 50 count is probably good enough to create around 5 gigaohms of resistance. It's probably good enough. I think that's everything. So how am I doing on time? Ooh, my cell phone's about to finish. Okay. So I guess that's my response. I've covered just about everything. Now, the idea I had to give myself argyria, I said it already, to give one leg argyria and not the other one. Maybe I didn't say it. And then to take the wristbands and put one at the knee, on the underside of the knee, at the top of the calf, and one at the ankle, and just pass electricity through the shin of one leg, even though both the shin and the thigh of that one leg both might have argyria on it. But to prepare myself, I'm passing the electricity through both legs because I want to equalize them both. Because I'm going to keep one covered and expose the other, and go out and sunbathe and cover the rest of my body. And I think I have to give myself a mild sunburn in order to get argyria. I can't just get argyria that easily. I don't have a lot of silver in my body, but I have enough that if I give myself a sunburn, I will get argyria. It's just that up until now, the last time I gave myself argyria, I was in the upper part of my body for the most part because that's where I got mostly the sunburn. So I never got a chance to try out a circuit strictly on the legs. I was using silver hydroperoxide bathing instead. But now we want to focus just on circuitry. And since I've never really given myself a real noticeable case of argyria, something that I can't, question, then I never had something to get rid of using a sleep circuit, a low amperage sleep circuit. So now's the time to try, because faithahora has really gotten me interested. It's like, okay, let's figure this out. Let's find out once and for all. Instead of just Vinny saying, well, but see, because that was from prior experiences. And I think from those experiences, they're valid. It's just, I want to remind myself, I want to jiggle my memory cells and say, oh yeah, of course it works. I knew it works. But it's been so long. It's been like a year since I've used sleep circuits at all. I've been so big on bathing that I'm such an exclusivist. Maybe I'm just a nudist. I just like to look at myself naked in the bath. No, I like the bliss of the bath. It's very relaxing. No, it's hydrating. That's it. Yeah, it's hydrating. And I'm in a dry environment here. True. Anyway, whatever the excuse, we're going to try this. That means I have to avoid bathing and just shower. And if I really want to make things worse, take a lot of vitamin C and use soap on my skin. Bronner's cast-style soap. Make it more difficult for me to get rid of argyria. Why would you want to do that? I don't know. We'll see what I do. Okay.